Welcome to Bilingual Book Buddies podcast and webcast. Bilingual Book Buddies is dedicated to promoting bilingual books for children and sharing insights from authors, illustrators, agents, editors, and anyone involved in bringing these stories to life. I'm Claudia Sloan. I'm one of 3 co-hosts of Bilingual Book Buddies. I'm an artist who also writes and illustrates books for children. I focus in themes of holistic wellness, Latinx culture, my own life adventures, modern fairy tales, sports, and STEAM. In fact, my latest picture book is a sports tale, and it was a dream come true because it was a collaboration with my favorite WNBA and NBA professional basketball teams, the Phoenix Suns and the Phoenix Mercury. And now join me in welcoming my 2 co-hosts, Alicia Salazar and Silvia Lopez.
Hi, I'm Alicia Salazar, children's book author and former teacher. I've written bilingual and English language books for young readers, including the Camilla the Star series, Trolls, Loch Ness Monster, and my recently published book, Cascarones, An Easter Surprise. I'm passionate about stories that celebrate culture, spark imagination, and encourage kids to express themselves, especially in more than one language. Silvia?
I'm Silvia Lopez. I am Cuban-American living in Miami, Florida. After a lifelong career as a school librarian, I took that love of reading and became an author of children's books. I have published about 19 books at this time, and most of them are bilingual or dual language.
Hi. Now I have the pleasure to introduce our guest. Alda P. Dobbs is a bilingual author passionate about telling stories rooted in history, culture, and family. Her debut novel, Barefoot Dreams of Petra by Sourcebooks, received a Pura Belpré Honor, was named a notable book by the American Library Association, and was nominated for the Texas Bluebonnet Master List. She's also the author of forthcoming picture book, The Giving Flower, The History of the Poinsettia, set to release in September. Born in northern Mexico, Alda migrated to the U.S. as a child and grew up in San Antonio. With a background in physics and engineering, she brings a unique perspective to storytelling and is deeply committed to connecting kids to nature, history, and their communities. Her greatest passion lies in making meaningful connections with people, eras, and places, and helping young readers understand how their own stories fit into the bigger picture.
Just a really quick thank you. I mean, I'm really grateful to be here, especially the last minute, because with summer coming, how busy it gets. And I looked at the calendar, I said, okay, this is a good date. Let me see if everybody could join. But so thank you so much for coming together and doing this. I appreciate it.
Thank you for being here. So, Alda, you're an award-winning bilingual author with a background in physics and engineering, as we heard from Alicia. So tell us, how did your journey lead you from science to storytelling?
Well, it's funny because I migrated from Mexico when I was a baby, and I grew up in San Antonio. But everything in San Antonio was in Spanish. The tiendita, the barrio, everything, everybody spoke Spanish. And I wasn't exposed to English until I got to elementary school. And the only word I knew was yes. So I was really excited. I thought I spoke English already because they taught me that word a week or so before school started. So when I got there, people would ask me, what's your name? And I'd say yes. And then they'd say, how do you like it? Yes. So for everything was yes. And I thought I was, fully bilingual. And I had a wonderful teacher that first day of school. And her name was Miss Bo, and she had these big, beautiful blue eyes. And she would tell me in her best Spanish, it was very broken Spanish, but she would tell me that she was Irish American and I was Mexican American, but we were both Americans. And then we would make it that she would teach me English and I'd be okay. So I was enthralled with her. And the next day, the second day when I showed up to school, they pulled me out of her class because they figured she didn't speak enough Spanish. And they put me with a teacher that spoke Spanish, and he was Mexican American male. And he must have had his own traumas because it was me and this other little boy that didn't speak English. And he would just take it out on us, his frustrations and anger. And he would get upset because we couldn't learn it fast enough. and he would shake us, he would spank us, and he would get really upset. So needless to say, I had him for 3 years. I had him for kinder, second and fourth grade. And in kindergarten, I was terrified of him. I'd hear his steps, just, he wore these cowboy boots, and I was just terrified of him. By the time I was in the fourth grade, I spoke English a little bit better, and I was no longer terrified of my teacher, but I didn't like English. I had this anger towards English, and I can stand the language. I didn't care about reading books in English. But something that I did like a lot growing up were stories. I love stories, and I was always there at the family tables trying to listen to every bit of details of family stories. And I was a kid that would go to my friend's house, and every time my friends wanted to go outside and play, I'd be like, wait, your grandma's almost done with her story. Hold on, and they're like, come on, let's go. And I'm like, wait, because I love stories. But I never made that connection between stories and books. And another thing too that I attribute that to is because there were no Spanish books available at the library. They were all in English, so I didn't bother with the books, but I never realized that there was a connection there. So I was a storyteller for the longest time, and not until as a 16-year-old, a book changed my life. And that's when the idea of becoming a writer, that's when I made the connection. Okay, stories, books are stories. And the idea of being a writer came to me. But when I went into college, I took entrance exams, and I did really well in math, but I bombed the English test badly. And that's when I told myself, okay, God or the universe is telling me not to be a writer, that's not for me. So I put away that dream and pursued physics and engineering because math came easier to me. But those stories kept coming. They kept bubbling up in my mind, in my head. It just wouldn't leave me alone. And it wasn't until in my 30s that we were in Italy, my husband and I, the military took us there, and I couldn't find a job in engineering. And that's when my husband said, well, you've always had these stories. Sit down and write. You have the opportunity now. But again, I was afraid. I was afraid of English. This fear that's always been with me of not speaking it right, not knowing it fully. But I finally told myself, I've always been a writer. I've written things for physics, for engineering, for graduate school. Why am I so afraid of English? So that's when I finally, with the encouragement of my husband, I finally dove into writing, and that's when it all started.
That's absolutely wonderful. What a great story.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. It's very interesting to look at everybody's journey through the education systems in our country.
Sure.
So many good things, so many things that need to be addressed. But that's a very interesting story that you have. Very good. Okay, I have a second question for you.
Sure.
Your debut novel, Barefoot Dreams of Petra Luna, has received several honors. Can you share what inspired you to write that story and what it means to you personally?
What inspired it? I'm honored about the readers, the following that the book had, and but the way it started is because when I'm learning how to write, I had no idea what to do, how to write, how to do creative writing. I had always done technical. So the first story that came to me was about two talking butterflies, because it's a story that had been with me since I was 19. And like I tell people, I wrote that whole novel not knowing what I was doing. And of course, when you take it to agents and editors, they say, nah, it doesn't do well and all that. So I finally, after a couple of years, I put it away and started writing articles. So one of the articles was for Highlights Magazine, and it got bought. And at that point, they asked me, do you have any more articles to write for us? Because we like your style. And that's when the story of my ancestors came to me. And I said, well, this would be a great article for Highlights, but, I got to do the investigation, see if it was, right, accurate. And that took 2 years to find out, 2.5 years to find out that the story was valid. And once I did all that research and just recognizing the power of that story, I said, I can't do this as a magazine article. This has to be a book, a picture book. So at first it was a picture book idea. And I wrote the whole picture book and took it to agents, editors, didn't like it. And again, I'm still learning until one agent, a couple of years later said, I love this. She thought it was a chapter. She didn't realize it was a picture book. And when I said it was a picture book, she said, no, you have to turn this into a novel. I want to see what happens to the character before and after. So at that point, that's when I started focusing on turning it into a novel. And it would take another 4 years of research, of learning how to write a novel to do that. So yeah, when I tell children, it took 7 years from the idea until I was holding my book. It's a long time, but yeah, it was a long time, but I had such a passion for that story that it kept me going, without stopping. So that's what I always advise to writers, find something you're really, really, truly passionate about, that you will stick to that story, for as long as it takes to get it done.
Thank you very much. That's another great answer.
Oh, thank you.
And now we have Alicia.
So you have covered this a little bit, but there's kind of a little different twist at the end. So here's my question. You've mentioned that you didn't connect with books until you were 16. What finally changed that for you, and how does it influence how you write today?
Yeah, that's another anecdote that I love to tell, because like I said, I had this love-hate with English and books and anything that dealt with English. And at 16, I was working full-time at a mall at the food court. And I started work right after school, and the end of the shift was usually at 9, 10, because we had to clean up. So by the time 10:15 came, I had to take the bus back home. I had to take 2 buses back home. And I remember how exhausted I was, at that bus ride. It was late already, and I would always try to do my homework there. At that point, I remember I had done my homework, and I was about to set my backpack on the seat next to me when I noticed somebody had left a book there behind. And I figured, okay, well, I already did my homework, so let me see what this book is about. And it was Catcher in the Rye. And I said, well, I wonder what this is about. So I opened it up, and I was just enthralled. I did not put that book down the whole night. I stayed up that night, read the book. By the time I finished it, it was time to get ready for school. But I was so excited because I thought it was magical, because the character, Holden, he was so different from me. He was a rich kid from the Northeast, white kid, and I was a poor Mexican girl from the south side of San Antonio. But I was Holden, that was me. That was my angst against the world, the way I viewed everything. And I said, how did this author do it? How did Salinger do this? I want to do this magic, because this is just magic, and that's the idea that came to me first, of being a writer, a storyteller. And that's the book that changed me.
Wonderful.
I remember a book like that, and I was traveling in Oaxaca, of all places, Mexico, and I got so sick. And my roommate was my mother-in-law, and she got so sick too. And it's like, it's awful when you get sick when you're on vacation. But
Oh
there
my
was this book in the bed and breakfast where we were, and I just couldn't put it down. It was one of those. It made my illness. I was just one of those flus or whatever. Just kind of seem invisible, like it wasn't happening. Because I basically spent, I think it was like about 48 hours that I couldn't get out. And every moment that I would wake up, I would just read.
That's smart. No, that's great. I love it. I'd love to hear stories like that of the book, that one book that opened that world to you. I love those stories.
Yeah.
You saw yourself as that character. Okay. And we write to have the children and the readers identify with our characters. We do write that way. And it is important for children who are not like Holden, not the Northeast, character. It's important for them to see themselves in the books. But a good author, an outstanding author like Salinger, will make it possible for someone who is not like their character at all, it's completely different, identify with that character, because that's the power of good literature. That is the power of good literature, that it is universal. And so that story that you told is wonderful. And Claudia, that is so funny, because I've been sick too in certain times. And the best thing to do is to grab the book, whatever book, because you just want to, you want to distract yourself. So that's a great story. We're blessed today that we're having these wonderful stories.
Yeah. What book was that, Claudia, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah.
Well, you probably will laugh, but it was A Dog's Purpose, A Dog's Purpose. They
That
made
is
a
a
movie out
good,
of it.
yeah, no, that's amazing book too. That's a great book to have when you're
That's a
sick,
great,
I
right?
was in tears and everything. I mean, it had
yeah.
to do too. I had just lost my dog at that time,
Oh,
period. So I think it was related a little bit with that. But also, I mean, the book was beautifully written, and the movie was absolutely amazing too.
It was,
it's
yeah, that's a
wonderful.
great book.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it's really nice when our books make it into movies. So hopefully, something
Huh?
like that for you and for all
There
of us.
you go. There
And
you go.
talking about books, you have a new picture book coming up, The Giving Flower,
That's
and you have it
right.
also in Spanish coming out. So it's an English version and a Spanish version, right?
That's
And
true.
it's coming up in September, from what I hear. So tell us a little bit about it and what readers can be looking forward to.
Sure, yeah. So it's this one. I have the Giving Flower, the English version. The Spanish one, I don't know. There, it's in digital form, so you can see an arc if you want an arc in the digital form. My publisher can hook you up. But yeah, know that yeah, you should contact them, and we're all contact me, and I'll share that file. But yeah, the Giving Flower. It started with because I always like making bridges, connections between cultures, and I've always been from Mexico. I'm always trying to make that connection. And I see so many poinsettias every year, and I wanted to, I knew they came from Mexico, but I didn't know to what extent. So I started researching the history and didn't know that it was the Aztecs who had cultivated that flower, who first spotted that flower. And to me, that opened a whole new world, with that flower, because it's touched so many cultures around the world, and so many people use that flower. And to realize that it was the Aztecs who brought it, who made it into what it's, the initial flower that we have now. To me, that was great. So I wanted to dig more into that, and then realizing that there was a connection. The fact that it's called poinsettia or poinsettia, I can't get myself between saying poinsettia, was because of the ambassador Poinsett, who was at Mexico. His name was Poinsett, and he's the one who introduced the flower to the United States, and hence the name Poinsettia. But there are so many names. You have the indigenous name with La Xochitl, and then you also have Flor de Nochebuena, which is called in Mexico. But like in Spain, it's called something totally different. It's Flor de Pascua. So you have so many regions of the world that have that name. And again, I'm trying to make those connections. So that was my aim for it. And I was given the opportunity, offered the opportunity to translate it. And I do speak Spanish. It's my native tongue, but writing Spanish is something so different from English. I always tell people how fascinated I am with English because of the single syllable words, the short words. So, I always tell kids, look at the body parts. You have head, back, knee, just single syllables. And in Spanish, you have cabeza, espalda, rodilla. So you have 3 syllables, and you have to write different in order to make those long words fit smoothly. So it took me a while to get into that rhythm. And I had to study a lot of books in Spanish and then find the right words, of course, because every word counts and weighs a lot. And of course, the translation can't be literal because a lot of stuff gets lost. So it was almost like rewriting the book. And I put so much work into it that I think I like the Spanish version now than I do the English version. So yeah, I can see the passion. Every time I read it in Spanish, I feel that fire in there more so than in the English one.
I love it that you're touching in so many things, but particularly the fact that it's not just a literal translation. People have these, and I say just kind of in general, but people have this misconception that, oh yeah, you write it in English and easily translate it to Spanish and you're done, or put it on Google Translate and you're right. No, 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 no. It is an art and a craft, and
Mhm.
I'm glad thank you for mentioning that here in the podcast.
No, my hat's off to translators because it's for the novel Barefoot Dreams that I was offered to do the translation, and just to do the prologue, which is 2 pages long. It took me 2 weeks to do it. So I said, you know what, the novel's probably gonna take me 4 years or something like that. So I said, no, leave it to the professionals, that are better. So, but yeah, I was glad they allowed me to do some feedback and suggestions and all that. So I was glad for that opportunity.
Well, that leads me into the next question. Actually, our next question has to do with translation. And you personally translated, like you said, The Giving Flower. but there was a decision made for you to make that translation. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, they offered it because they had offered it with Barefoot Dreams, and at one point I told them, no, I can't do this. I need a professional. That's why we have professionals, because they do that. But I just wanted to make sure the story was authentic to the character, because even within Mexico, regions speak differently in
Yes.
Mexico, and my character's from the mountains in Mexico, near the coal mine area, which speaks different to the other side of the mountains, in northern Mexico and Chihuahua and all that. So I was more of the Coahuila side, and I wanted that for my character. So I asked the publishing house if I could do the suggestions, because the translator was from Mexico, but they're from Mexico City. And so I just, kind of modified certain phrases and certain words to fit that region of because it's a very precise region of the country. And then for the Giving Flower, I'm the one who offered it, because I had already envisioned how to do it in Spanish, certain phrases and whatnot. So at the first opportunity, I offered that, and luckily, yeah, they agreed, and it took. There's times that I was like, oh my goodness, what did I sign up for? Because it's a daunting task,
It is.
And and I got a lot of help from my mom. My mom would look at a lot of the text to make sure I wasn't missing anything, and then I had a friend as well, a teacher from my kids, and then I had another friend that lives in Mexico City who even helped with that as well. So yeah, that's the thing about writing, right? A lot of times readers or children think it is a solitary endeavor, but you do have a lot of collaboration, there's a lot of people that help you bring a book into the world. And the way I see it is, how they say it takes a village to raise a kid. The same thing with a book, a story. I think it takes a village to bring that story to life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is a great answer. Thank you. Okay. All right. So Alicia has the next question.
So you are a bilingual author. What role do you think bilingual books play in helping children understand both their identities and the identities of others?
I think they're very important, wherever, because this is a country of immigrants. So wherever you come from, I think it's important to have books in that language, that your native tongue, because they make that bridge, they allow for that bridge for you to start with your native tongue and then eventually go into the English books. But you need a base, you need to start somewhere. And like I mentioned with my journey, I think it would have helped when I was little, if somebody brought books to me in Spanish, and then I could have made that correlation a lot sooner about stories and books. And, it wouldn't have taken me another, 10 years, until I was 16 to discover that. So I think it's important to have that in order to make the bridge. And also, as a teen, I remember coming across a book in the library. Was it in the library? And it was a dictionary, but it was in German, a German English dictionary. And I was fascinated. I didn't know what I was reading, but I just kept looking at the words, and I was just mesmerized by the foreign language. So I think even for English speakers, that only speak one language, I think introducing books like that, it opens up a different world, a curiosity of what's out there, what else, and finding those patterns, that connection between our world and that other world.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So you're working on creating a book festival in the neighborhood where you grew up. And I know this is a little bit off. I'm just trying to guide you. But tell us what inspired that initiative, and what do you hope it brings to the community?
Well, for me, I grew up in Southside San Antonio, which is an impoverished area. And San Antonio is a big city now. It's really, really big. But the north side, which is the nice side of town, has two festivals. They have a big YA festival and a picture book festival. So when I spoke to a librarian, I said that's there locally in San Antonio, I said, what do you think of the idea? I'm just throwing it out there of having a festival for middle grade, but in the South Side, And she thought it was great. It was wonderful. The only thing she said, well, but in the north side, the students buy the books, they purchase the books because they could afford them, right? And you have really good authors come in and they sell many, many books. So that's why the publishers, send them over because they know they'll sell many copies. But in the south side, parents, the money, can be stretched that much to buy books. A lot of people can't afford books. So at that point, that's when it occurred to me. I said, what if I do a nonprofit and able to raise the funds and give the books out to kids? Because these are the kids that need the books the most, because they don't have them at home. I didn't have books growing up. So that's the idea. And she liked that idea. And little by little, our group is growing. And I was hoping to have started earlier, but I had to move. We moved to Spain for a year. That was a whole, big project there. And we finally came back. And this year we've been selling bags. So now I'm hoping to this fall start getting everybody together. And I've made maybe wonderful people who run projects like that. And who have, I had a gentleman, he's a bookstore owner in Utah, and he offered to mentor me. He's like, I'll mentor you. I've done this before. So I was like, oh my goodness. So it seems like the universe lines up, God makes things happen for, puts people in your path. And yeah, so I'm excited about that, and hopefully after this trip this summer, I could start sitting down and getting things together. And hopefully next year after this one, I'll start something. So I'll keep you posted.
Please do. I'd love to hear more about that. I mean, I go to Texas every now and then. I have family all over San Antonio, but it would have to coincide to when I'm there. So
Yeah,
looking forward to hearing about it though.
But it's wonderful. You may even want to look online for similar festivals like that have more. Well, they'll have things like read alouds and visiting authors, but it's more giving away than buying. And that can be, that can be through many organizations, local organizations and groups of editors and publishers who do that. So, and I think that's wonderful because that's such a boost to the community.
I think so.
It is a wonderful boost to the community. So that's great. That's great, Alda. We have the Miami Book Fair here. And yes, they do have the books for sale, but they also provide school children with copies of books, and even the children who are brought in Boston to listen to the books, and then they're given a copy. So we had that this last year, and it was such a wonderful experience. It is a great experience to see somebody, a little person running away with your book, holding tight. It's terrific. So that's a wonderful thing that you're doing, a great initiative that you have. I have a question that has to do getting away from that, but for the librarians and educators that are listening, and we do have quite a few, what advice would you give to them on choosing and championing bilingual books that really resonate with students? So how would they go about making the best choices for promoting and for choosing the books for their students?
I think the best way would probably to join organizations like Reforma. Reforma is a big library organization that promotes bilingual books. And they have chapters. They have, I'm familiarized with the one in Colorado because I lived in Colorado and I've done talks for them. And they're big into promoting that. So they know what's out there. They inform the audience, the librarians and the educators what books are out there. So that's one great way to be there. And they also have other information as to funding and accessibility and stuff like that. So those symposiums and conferences, even from local branches, are great. I just got invited to speak for the national one, Reforma. So I'm really excited to learn because I've never been to the national conference. So we'll see how that goes. But that's another opportunity there, those national ones, Reforma. And there's another one called CABE, which is California Association for Bilingual Educators, CABE. And they have a huge conference in Southern California. Usually they do it in Long Beach. I believe next year it might be San Francisco, but usually it's in the LA area. But 5,000 librarians go to that conference, that state conference, and it's amazing. I was invited to talk one year. Last year I went again on my own with another friend, and we partner up and talked about the books. And we're one of the smaller talks, but we had about 60, 80 people show up for our book, and it was a full room. And that's what the educators were and librarians were telling us, that that's what they want. They're hungry for those books that are high quality translated works. So that I hear that a lot. So I think that's one way you could network. And of course, they have bulletins that they publish on new books that are coming out, and they have social media where announcements get made and stuff like that. So it's a good way to network and look at your local state too, because Texas has one too. It's called TABE, Texas Association of Bilingual Educators. But some of them are not as big. California, I think, is the biggest one, CABE. But and even a lot of people from out of state go there just because that's how the resources that they provide, the knowledge is amazing. So if you could connect either to associations of that promote that, that's one way to get involved and stay current as to what's available out there.
Thank you. That's great advice. Wonderful information. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Okay, connection is a big theme in your work. How do you hope your stories help readers, especially kids, see the shared threads in all of our lives?
I think it's what we were talking about earlier with the character Holden and Catcher in the Rye, that you see yourself, and I love it when people come to me that are not Mexican American or Mexican descent and tell me they're either. I had one that was a Ukrainian child and told me that they identified with Petra Luna, because of what they had experienced in Ukraine, when the war started. Or I've had a lady who is from the Philippines and said that her mom's stories were Petra Luna's stories, and that they even had, because I have a character in Barefoot Dreams with Petra Luna named Marieta, who's a soldier, really, tough soldier. And they said that they have their own version of Marieta. It's called Gabriela. And she's like, but it's the same thing, So I love to see those connections, because I think we all share those stories, and it's just, and that lets us know how similar we are. At the core, we're all the same. We share the same stories. And I think once we realize that, we understand each other better and come, compromise and work together, because I think so much more could get accomplished when we work together.
Absolutely. Okay.
I think
Claudia?
I get the last question.
There you
So
go.
before we wrap up, where can listeners find your books and stay updated on your work? But also, how, if it's possible, how can they get involved with your upcoming festival project?
Oh my goodness. Well, in my website, I have a website, www. Oh, yeah, I don't know if you say W's anymore, but it's Alda P Dobbs, my name, and the P for Patricia goes there. So yeah, they have it there. That's my website. And I also have an Instagram, which is at Alda P Dobbs. That's my Instagram account. But most important, because I'm terrible about posting stuff on Instagram, I'm trying to get better. But the newsletter, I do have a newsletter where I make announcements of what's coming up, and you can reach me, by responding to that newsletter, or in the contact form too. On my website, I have a contact form. You could contact me through there, and I'll get back to you, if you have questions about, wanting to join the newsletter, or also about that library festival that one day I hope to be able to get up and running. And if you're in the San Antonio area or anywhere else, if you have advice or something like that, I wholeheartedly appreciate any suggestions or advice or ways to show me how you do the festival and stuff like that, so that I could learn better. But yeah, that's one way to reach me. So I appreciate that. No, it's hopefully we could get it up and running, like I said. But yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. But the newsletter, I give information on my latest events, and I also do a book recommendation and spotlight writers. And I also have a writing little section where I give tidbits about my writing experience, what helped me, what books and writing helped me, stuff like that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Today's chat has gone by super fast. So this officially concludes our main section, but we have what we call rapid fire questions. So these are 3 questions that we ask to every guest in our podcast and webcast. So just whatever comes to mind, as quickly as possible. So here's the first one. What's one fact about you that even your biggest fans may not know?
One fact about me, probably I have it in my website, but not too many people know that one of the jobs I had was I've been a mime. And I think something they don't know about me being a mime, this was in college, was that I got fired on my first day as a mime. And that's because I laughed too much. I couldn't stop laughing. And I guess they don't like laughing mimes. So they kicked me out and they said, sorry, just you laugh too much. So yeah, that's the only job I've been fired from, from being a mime. So that's one thing that people don't know.
That's a hilarious story. Why were you fired? Because you laugh. I guess mimes, unless maybe you laughed like this,
Yeah,
maybe.
exactly. I can do
But
that.
if you laughed out loud, you ruined the whole thing. Oh, that's hilarious. That's very funny. Okay, second rapid fire question. If others were to describe you in 1, 2, or 3 words, what would those words be?
Oh my goodness. I would say, because I'm an introvert, I'm very shy, very, very shy. And I've had that happen when I was a teenager, even as a grown-up, I go into a workplace and I'm very quiet, very shy. But once I warm up, I sing, I do a lot of stuff, with people. And people often tell me, when we first met you, we thought you were like very stuck up, very you just full of yourself. But no, it's just I'm shy, but I always come across like that just because I'm so nervous, I'm so shy and saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing, and I tend to be quiet. But like I said, once I warm up, people can't shut me up. So.
Well, you've said all the right things today. Believe me, you have said all the right things today. Okay, we have one more. Alicia.
Last rapid fire question. What book or books have had the most impact in your life?
Oh, I would have to say, well, yeah, Catcher in the Rye was one of them. That one really, really moved me. And I guess there's so many books. It depends on what I'm studying, what research project I'm doing at the moment. That will inspire me a lot. So that's for instance, when I did Barefoot Dreams of Petraluna, the research there was one book by John Reed. He was a journalist during the Mexican Revolution, and he actually hung out with Pancho Villa and his troops. And he interviewed Pancho Villa, and I just, when I found that book, I'm like, this is gold. This guy was there and interviewed Pancho Villa. And I to me that was amazing. So depending on the research that I'm doing, I love that. But because there's so many wonderful books, but books that truly change the way I see things, those would have to be it.
Wonderful.
Wow, can you imagine interviewing characters like that, like Pancho Villa? Wow. And so Sylvia is Cuban. So Sylvia, you may not know who Pancho Villa is or what.
Oh no, I know. Believe me.
She knows. She's very well read. Of course,
I'm a librarian. We're a search engine, built-in search. Oh no. And remember that my books, I have books with Mexican themes.
Oh, that's
Look,
right.
see, there's my hat. There's my hat.
So
They have a ranchero hat in there, which is lovely.
Absolutely. No. I'm very eclectic and very, anything that catches my fancy, and I have that on my website. Anything that catches my fancy and that I think will catch the fancy of a kid or a child, that's good. It's great. That's fine.
And by the way, my hats off to libraries. I mean, I really appreciate it because I always tell people that Petra Luna, the story of Petra Luna almost did not come to be because after doing research for 2.5 years, I was about 2 years, I had read every book on the Mexican Revolution and I couldn't validate that family story. And I was getting so frustrated. I was about to, to throw the towel out, away. And a librarian is the one that came to me and because I was afraid of going into the library. I didn't know, or tapping on the shoulder of a librarian. I was afraid they would get upset or something, but
no shh in my libraries. No, never.
So somebody said, well, have you asked the librarian? I said, well, can we do that? Is it okay? They're like, that's what they're there for. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, I thought they would get upset if I asked for help,
No.
but so finally, yeah, I didn't realize you could make an appointment. So I made an appointment and I met with the librarian and they saved they're the ones I thank for, because I made that jump to finally discovering that story. To validate that story. And had it not been for the librarian, I think I would have just thrown the story out and started with something else. So yeah, I always thank librarians for that.
Well,
Kudos
thank
to
you for that. You've just made my day.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they don't get angry. I've noticed. Now I ask for all kinds of help.
no.
So they're all very friendly.
If they get angry, they're in the wrong profession.
There
Believe
you
me.
go.
Yeah, most of the ones that I have to deal with are amazing. So yes, kudos to librarians. There should be, I think there is a librarian day, National Librarian Day, no?
There is,
Like a
yeah.
Teacher's Day. Yes, good. Well deserved.
Yeah, I think it's in May, April or May. I can't remember which month
We'll
it
have to
is, but
celebrate it next year with something special. See if we can remember.
yeah.
Well, but this brings us to the conclusion of our time with you, Alda. Thank you so much. This has been wonderful. Alicia and Sylvia, do you have any last remarks that you'd like to make?
No, it's been terrific. Thank you very much, Alda. Thank you for your time.
Oh no, thank you all three of you. You know, it's the conversation. I love the conversation. You know, I love having that back and forth and learning more about you and your books. You know, your amazing books. So thank you.
Well,
Alicia, you want to add anything?
No, I just wanted to say thank you for joining us. It was great talking to you. So
No, I appreciate that. And I forgot to add one thing when because yeah, the mime is something, like I said, it's online, and not the fact that I got fired, but something that I just thought of right now is that if you play oldie songs, I will sing the whole time, like I won't shut up. So I love oldies. That's all I listen to in 60s and 70s, and if it's disco, I'll probably dance. But
in Spanish too?
In Spanish too.
I love the oldies in Spanish.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I love the oldies.
And all the way back too. So it was like a
yeah, no, that's a project that I'm working on music from back in the day, from the 40s and even 50s. So
Are you a musician also? Do you play something?
because I'm doing research, the novel that I want to write next she's a pianist. So I started taking piano. I've never played an instrument in my life, but I'm about to start my third year of piano because I want to get into her head. So yeah, that's a whole story there about music and writing and all that.
That's fabulous. That's wonderful.
Yeah, but thank you all so much. I appreciate the time here and everything. I hope I can meet you in person one day.
When you have that festival, we'll be there.
All right, sounds good.
Hey.
Well, thank you so much. And thanks everybody viewing and listening.
Thank you. Y'all take care.
Bye.
Bye.
In the next episode, Lulu del Acre.